Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica Cussins, and I am an AI policy specialist with the Future of Life Institute, as well as a research fellow with the UC Berkeley Center for Long-Term Cybersecurity. So you've already heard really fantastic talks from both Alan and Brian, landscaping the issues and the actors related to the strategy and coordination and governance of AI and AGI development. So I won't talk more about that range of issues here, just flag really quickly that the Future of Life Institute does have a resource page on AI policy, which is futureoflife.org/AI policy. And there's also going to be a breakout session tomorrow, I believe at 1 p.m., talking about global governance of AGI, if that interests you further. So what I'm going to share now is a more brief summary of the strategy discussion that has taken place over the last couple days here at the workshop. The goal of this is just transparency and to help make sure that everyone's on the same page for the continuing discussions we'll have over the next 3 days of the Beneficial AGI conference. So this morning you heard about some of the speculative future destinations that have gained traction from participants here. And these provide useful inspiration to the work that we're engaged with. But given the complexity and the diversity of what is at stake, even more important than defining the contours of a space where we want to be is to identify those shared goals and commonalities among a range of diverse actors. So you've heard some of those commonalities across the destinations already, features such as humility, robustness, flexibility, autonomy, peacefulness, and the reduction of suffering. And these desired features can really help guide us towards the AGI futures that we want and our strategies to get there. So to make it through this period safely and into a post-AGI world, we need to keep these features in mind, but we also need to chart paths required to help us get to futures we all enjoy. So yesterday morning, we worked through a set of scenarios to help us imagine the possibility space. For example, we were asked to imagine the character of Bob. And this was from Shahar's great talk, so please find him to give him the credit he deserves for this. So Bob is a leader at a major company seeking to develop AGI. He goes to meetings like this one. He knows there are strategic challenges associated with AGI, and he's seeking advice. What do you tell him? Maybe the current narratives of tech utopia on one hand and existential threats on the other are not the most compelling narratives. So what do we have at our disposal? It was suggested that we can look at 3 interconnected elements: development, deployment, and landscape. When it comes to development of AGI, what are the levers that matter most? For starters, data. So we need responsible data use policies. What kind of information will Bob have access to? What will he share? He will also need sufficiently secure and efficient hardware. Other factors that influence development include questions related to control, incentives, and openness. Maybe Bob needs a charter to indicate his willingness to be transparent about the status of his company's technology. Maybe he needs to know how to design safety, reliability, and accountability into his processes from the outset. And how will he measure resiliency across all of these fronts? How will he protect his networks from cyber attacks? When it comes time for deployment, Bob's concerns will only grow. Not only does he need to think about all of the issues already mentioned, but he has to assess the generality and capability of his systems and the domains of their application. What uses are illegal? What uses are dangerous? What uses could be co-opted or result in a public backlash against his company? As for the landscape, Bob probably needs to accept that his company does not exist in a vacuum, but that he has to assess his position alongside a complex landscape of actors: social, cultural, and environmental realities, economic constraints, and security considerations. Does he have partnerships with Amazon or Google? Is his work supported by his national government? Might people see his tool as a symbol of change they don't want, leading to the equivalent of throwing rocks at the Google buses? What if he ends up automating people's jobs? Will foreign governments see his development as a threat? Obviously, Bob has a lot to think about. But really, as Bob's advisors, we have a lot to think about. How can we boil down our recommendations and improve our messaging so that he quickly understands the difficulties and steps he can take to help create more beneficial AGI. In the workshop, we focused on scenario role play as a mechanism through which to explore the motivations of different actors and the kinds of developments that increase the chances of global coordination. As was pointed out, being Bob for an hour can make you a better Bob advisor. So we split into many different groups and played out numerous scenarios intended to depict a variety of possible, probable, and surprising futures, in which each person took on the role of different actors influencing the scenario. The insights from these breakouts were really interesting. People found that the fall to negative outcomes happened quickly and could be the decision of just one prominent actor. They also had frustrations that they didn't have more tools to leverage, even if they held a position of seemingly great power. People struggled to find ways to credibly commit to global or bilateral coordination with existing paradigms. And in some scenarios, the gradual and subtle use of AGI prevented other actors from knowing of its existence and being able to make proactive decisions about how to respond. In scenarios where one country's industry and government were not working together efficiently, they experienced a harder time responding to global threats. People also found that if top AI researchers could communicate one coherent message about risk to their government, it worked a lot better than having that community be split. On the more positive side, people found that implementing concrete channels for monitoring and communication increased overall feelings of agency. Moreover, having shared knowledge of mutually harmful effects contributed to coordination, as did the perception that everyone was relatively aware of the capabilities of their adversaries. One group found that the desire to build technology faster actually led to greater global coordination because researchers needed to share and discuss their findings. They instituted an AI Olympics to further propel innovation. Overall, many groups found the majority of global players were incentivized to cooperate in order to realize the benefits of the technologies and prevent an increasing number of catastrophes. So stepping back into reality, there was also a really great panel yesterday that elucidated key issues to be aware of in the strategy space. Participants highlighted the need to think about who the relevant actors are and how stable that configuration is into the future. To question the institutions and the processes, determining the rules and whether it's actually working well for people, and how to determine how broadly to share results in sensitive research. Participants also talked about how to facilitate global coordination and suggested that current institutions are not sufficient, and many people feel disconnected and even alienated from their political systems. It was also pointed out that emerging laws for AI, like the Bot Disclosure Act in California, for example, might be important practice for the community in supporting the application of rules to ML systems. So participants of the workshop have proposed a variety of action items, and these should be carried into the conference for consideration as we all continue to identify further action items over the next 3 days. So there have been tons of really great ideas proposed, and I'm not going to go into all of them now. Just share a few ideas that have come out that were mentioned fairly consistently or that got some positive feedback. So one participant emphasized the importance of targeted conferences, so you can all feel good about being here. And other ideas have included blockchain coordination tools, anonymous markets for whistleblowing, establishing new AI narratives in the media, credibly signaling trust from AI organizations, establishing a unified framework of AI social responsibility that is trackable, facilitating the use of ML in social sciences and civic tech, instituting a new governance regime that implements private regulators who are designated by the government, identifying the early wins in AI policy that translate to more advanced systems, for example, by implementing standards for transparency and accountability, improving documentation of impact and performance evaluation of ML models, leveraging the many areas of commonality across AI policy around the world to support international cooperation. And we've heard some great areas of commonality between the US and China in Brian's talk. establishing rules for the use of AI in militaries and critical decision-making, and enabling commitments for coordination and resource sharing prior to the emergence of AGI. And the windfall clause that Ellen mentioned is another great example of that. So if any of these ideas spark interest for you, feel free to find me. I can connect you to the right person, and then enter your own ideas on the Google spreadsheet. So across all of the ideas that people have proposed so far for strategically reaching our goals, a number of themes have already emerged. The first one is that there are actions to be taken by a broad diversity of actors. There have been actions identified for people in AI research and development, in operations, in communications, in academia, in civil society, and in the government. So hopefully that fact encourages you that whatever brought you here, however you got here, there are paths being highlighted that can help you identify ways to support safe and beneficial AGI. A second theme that emerged was to identify the comparative advantage that you may have and target your actions toward those with significant impact or opportunity. And a final theme of the actions proposed is that many of them require at least some degree of institutional change, whether to establish greater accountability within organizations or even to rethink the way that we govern technology altogether. So I think that points to the difficulty of the task ahead of us, but I'd guess that this group might be up to the challenge. So thank you.